Okay, so today we're going to be talking about 3.4 point slope form. So point slope form is just another way to write an equation. What you need to keep in mind here is that our value of y1 and x1, which is shown right here, is going to be just another a value of a point. So it's just a coordinate. And the slope, well, the slope is right here. That's going to be our slope. That's why it's called the point slope, because you are given a point. You're given this point of x1, y1. So there's our point. And we're given the slope, the value of m. And if you want to know where this came from, it's very simple. If I were to find m, my slope, and I wanted to use the equation to solve for slope, I would use y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And all they're doing is they're rearranging this so that it looks exactly like this equation right here. How they do that? Simple. What they did is they say m is going to be, they use an arbitrary value of y minus a specific value of y1 over x minus the specific value of x1. And if I want to change this to this point slope form, what I do is I just multiply both sides by x minus x1. And that way these are going to cancel. So that's the way to get rid of this. So this is going to cancel this. And if I multiply on this side, I got to multiply on this other end. So I end up with x minus x1. And now if I rewrite this, what they did is they just go ahead and take this y and put it as y minus y1 here. And then that's going to equal to this side, and they just move this to the other side. So this becomes m times x minus x1. And if you notice, that's the same thing you have as your point slope form. So it's just another way to write an equation. And what we're going to do is we're going to show you the different ways to write this equation using point slope form. Okay, so for problem number 1, we're going to be writing an equation in point slope form. A line passes through -3 and 6 and has a slope of -5. What is the equation of the line? Okay, so this is the most important thing you need to understand when using point slope form. Let's write the formula on the top here. The formula is y minus, and then again, this is minus the value of y1 is going to equal to our slope times x minus the value of x1. You're going to have to be very careful, because in here is not the same. The final equation is not necessarily the point itself. It's going to be the opposite of that, and I'll show you what I'm talking about right now as we do this. So let's go ahead and label this. So we know that -3 is our x value, so we're going to call that our x1, and our 6 is going to be our y1. Okay, now the slope is going to be the value of -5. And now what we're going to do is we're going to use this formula and plug everything in. So we're going to get the following. We're going to get y minus, and inside I want the value of y1. So if we go back here, our value of y1 is the value of 6. So I got to put a 6 in here because it's a positive 6. So it's going to be y minus, and then I'm going to put a parentheses to indicate that it's a 6, and it's a positive 6. And that's going to equal to our slope. Now our m is our slope, which happens to be a -5. So we're going to go ahead and put a -5 in there for our slope. Then we're going to put a parentheses times x, and we're going to subtract that by the value of x1. So I'm going to put another parentheses in here. Now notice what I'm doing. I'm putting a parentheses to show that in here I'm going to put the x1 value. That x1 value is a -3. So notice that this is a -3. So I'm going to put in here a -3. So now we're going to have to simplify this, because you have here two signs that are negative. So we need to change that double negative there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and say and simplify this, and we get y minus 6, because nothing changes. A negative times a positive stays as a negative. So we get y minus 6 equals 2, that's still -5, times x, and then here's the important thing. You have a negative times a negative. A negative times a negative is a positive. So this is going to turn into a +3. So it's going to be a +3. Let me make it a little bit nicer there. +3. And so that would be our equation. Our equation, okay, in point slope form is going to be y minus 6 equals -5 times x plus 3. Okay, so notice that if this is positive, for the x, then this is a negative. So that's important that you see that. I'm going to highlight it again. If this is a positive, then this point would have to be a negative. And then same thing here. If this is a negative for the value of y on your formula, then that means that for the point it is a positive 6. So it's important that you understand that. Okay, let's go on to problem number 2. Graphing using a point slope form. What is the graph of the equation y minus 1 equals to 2/3 x minus 2? So again, it's important that you understand that if you're going to use the formula, so if I use this point of -1, then my point is going to be a positive 1 for y. So that means that this value should be a 1 for my point. So my point should contain a value of 1, okay? Not of -1, okay? Now let's look at this x minus 2. Always go opposite. If you see a minus, a negative, then that means that the x point that I will be using for our point would be a 2. So it'd be a 2 and a 1 for our point, not -1 and 2. It'd be positive 1 and a positive 2 for your y and your x. Now our slope, well, that's very simple. All you have to do is notice the 2/3. That's always going to be our slope for m. So we're going to go ahead and say that our slope, which is our m, is going to be 2/3. Now, using this information, we're going to go ahead and graph this line. So we know that the point starts at, well, it doesn't start. It's one of the points in the line. It's 2 and 1. So we're going to go ahead and locate 2 and 1. So 2 and 1, so x equals 2. Remember, this is our x and y. So we are going to go 2 and then up 1. And there's our first point, 2 and 1. Now, the next thing is to find our slope. Our slope is 2/3. Remember, 2/3 is really 2 is the rise, represents our rise, and then our 3 represents our run. So we're going to use that. We know it's going to be going from left to right. We're going to go up 2. So we're going to go up 2 and then 3 for the run. 1, 2, 3. And there's our point. So up 2, then 3. And then we will repeat the value again. We go up 2, then 1, 2, 3. Up 2, and then that kind of gets lost over there. Down 2, and then 3 to the left. Down 2, then 3 to the left. And down 2, 3 to our left, and so forth. So now we have our line. We can go ahead and draw that line. And so what we get here is, well, let's just go ahead and connect this. And just here's our line passing through these points. Let's stretch it out a little bit more, and there's a line. So there's a way of graphing a point slope form. Okay. All right. Let's go on to the next problem. Okay, so for problem number 3, we're going to be using 2 points to write an equation. What is the equation of the line at the right? So notice on the equation we are given 2 points. We're given -2 and -3, 1 and 4. So I'm going to go ahead and write those points down. So I'm going to put -2 and 3 and -3, and we're going to put 1 and 4. Okay, so the first thing is I can find our slope. Now you can use the graph and we can find our slope, and then or we can use our formula, which is m equals to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and we would label these points. It doesn't matter which ones you label, so I'm just going to call this x1 y1 and x2 y2, and I'm going to go ahead and substitute those values in. So for y2 I would plug in a 4 minus the value of our y1, which is a -3, and then I would plug in x2, which is a 1, minus our value of x2, which is a -2. And now I would simplify this. So this is just really 4 plus 3 equal to 1 plus 2. And we would simplify that even further. So our slope is going to equal to 7 over 3. Okay, now if you don't want to do this and you're given the graph, then another thing you can do is you can go ahead and count the number of squares. So if I count the number of squares, I get 1. Do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 for the rise, and 1, 2, 3 for the run. So notice that our slope is still going to be rise over run, and our rise is 7 over a run, which is 3. So it ends up being the same thing for our slope. Now, for the second part, we need to now turn this into an equation. Now, to turn this into an equation, we're going to use our point slope form. So that means we're going to use y1 minus y1 equals to our slope times x minus our x1. Now, you can remember, m is our slope, so we're going to go ahead and replace our slope. We know that's going to be 7 over 3 times x minus our value of our x1 and y minus our value of our y1. So that point, we're going to leave that in the parentheses. So now we will go ahead and use any of the 2 points to figure out, to get our equation. So we have 2 points. We have -2, -3, and 1 and 4. It doesn't matter which one you use. So I'll start with the positive ones. So if I use 1 and 4, I can plug that in. So our y value here, and I'll highlight that for you so you can see, our value here of 4, I would plug it in right here. So I will go ahead and plug in -4. I'm sorry, 4 itself, because it's not negative, it's going to be 4. And then for our x value, that's going to be a 1. So I would plug in here a 1 for this point. So I'll plug in a value of 1. And so this really becomes, go ahead and simplify that. This is just really y minus 4 equals 7/3 times x minus 1. Now, you're thinking, can I use any of the 2 points? Any point in the equation on the line is part of the equation. So we can use also the 2/3. So I could use the other one. So let me write this one in blue, or let me use another color, purple. And I can do the same thing. I can go y minus, I'm going to go ahead and plug in, and in this case, I'm going to plug in here, I'm going to plug in the oops, not the x, I'm going to plug in the y. The y is going to be -3, so I'm going to go ahead and plug in a -3 here. So I would plug a -3, and then that's going to equal to 7/3 times x minus whatever this value is for our x. And if we go back here, our x is going to be -2, so I'm going to plug in here a -2, so that becomes -2. And then I can simplify this, and if I simplify this, I'm going to get y, and then you have 2 negatives. That's negative times negative is a positive. This is really y plus 3 is going to equal to 7/3 times x. And again, negative times a negative is going to turn that -2 into a +2. So either 2 points would give you the equation of the light. Both of the answers are correct.